Okay, you're live.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Turn with me to page 27. Page number 27. I'm satisfied with just a cottage below, a little silver and a little gold. But in that city where the ransom will shine, I want a gold one, that silver mine. I've got a mansion just over the hilltop in that bright land where we'll never grow old. And someday yonder we will nevermore wander, but walk the streets that are pure as gold. Though often tempted, tormented and tested, and like the prophet, my pillow was stone. And though I find here no permanent dwelling, I know He'll give me a mansion my own. I've got a mansion just over the hilltop in that bright land where we'll never grow old. And someday yonder we will nevermore wander, but walk on streets that are pure as gold. Don't think me poor or deserted or lonely. I'm not discouraged, I'm heaven bound. I'm just a pilgrim in search of a city. I want a mansion, a harp and a crown. I've got a mansion just over the hilltop in that bright land where we'll never grow old. And someday yonder we will nevermore wander, but walk on streets that are pure as gold.
Amen.
Page number 44. Sing the wondrous love of Jesus, sing His mercy and His grace. In the mansions bright and blessed, He'll prepare for us a place. When we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be. When we all see Jesus, we'll sing and shout the victory. While we walk the pilgrim pathway, clouds will overspread the sky. But when traveling days are over, not a shadow, not a sigh. When we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be. When we all see Jesus, we'll sing and shout the victory. Onward to When the trumpet of the Lord shall sound, and time shall be no more, and the morning breaks eternal, bright and fair. When the saved of earth shall gather over on the other shore, and the roll is called up yonder, I'll be there. When the roll is called up yonder, 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 I'll be there. On that bright and cloudless morning, when the dead in Christ shall rise, and the glory of His resurrection share, when His chosen ones shall gather to their home beyond the sky, and the roll is called up yonder, I'll be there. When the roll is called up yonder, 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 I'll be there. Let us labor for the Master from the dawn till setting sun. Let us talk of all His wonders, love, and care. Then when all of life is over and our work on earth is done, and the roll is called up yonder, I'll be there. When the roll is called up yonder, 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 I'll be there.
Amen.
Good evening, good evening.
Good evening.
Lord willing, we're going to cover some topics that we've actually been going through in Sunday school the last few weeks. And so I kind of have 3 weeks worth of material to condense down, plus some more. So it'll be interesting. But I think that, I pray that you'll find something in it that'll be a blessing in your life. The topic is sons of God. Just put that out there, okay? And just to let your mind stew and roll a little bit as we go. In Genesis 1, we know that God created the heaven and the earth. That's there. We know that. But we have an interesting section in Genesis, and like I tell even the youth, I'm not afraid of telling you that there's other people that have other opinions that are non-biblical, and you're going to hear it. So be aware that you're going to hear this. And now let's look at the Bible and see what the Bible says about it. So this particular topic, Genesis chapter 6 and verse 1 is where we'll start. We're going to go through the Bible in so many different areas that I don't know that you'll want to keep up, but to listen and really pay attention. Genesis chapter 6 and verse 1. And it came to pass when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and the daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives, all of which they chose. Now this description, we jump down to verse 4, says there were giants in the earth in those days, and all after that, when the sons of man came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them. The same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. Now this area here has led into a lot of opinions of angels being the sons of God, and taking daughters of men, and therefore the giants, and it leads into mysticism and a lot of other stuff. And like I told the youth, you're going to hear this, because frankly, there's a lot of lies out there. But rather than hear my opinion, what I want to do is just carry you through as Scripture to answer some of this confusion. One of the challenges that we have is even our youth. We just recently had Halloween. People participate in Halloween a lot. And they'll dress up as superheroes. A lot of superheroes were based off mythological, like Thor, which were based on the same concept, the sons of God, involving themselves with man. And so even the superheroes that children involve themselves today are continuing the feeding of the thoughts and the belief that somehow, some way, there must be sons of God, angels in heaven that have come down and played around with man. And it's hard to shake if you watch the world and you read comics and follow superheroes and stuff like that. It's hard to imagine it's not. In fact, it makes perfect sense when you read it. And then you throw on top of that Job. In Job, it talks about where there was a time that the sons of God gathered before the throne. And God talked to Satan and said, "Where have you been?" And he said, "I've been down on the earth walking to and fro." So that visual explanation, in that instance, we understand that the sons of God were probably the angels. And using Job as their definition, they fall back to this section. And so I'll read it again. "And it came to pass when the men began to multiply on the face of the earth, the daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair. And they took them wives, all of which they chose." And then jump down to verse 4. "There were giants in the earth in those days. And also after that, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men, which were of old men of renown." So when you begin getting the visual picture out of Job, that even Satan was counted in the midst. When you talked about the sons of God, there was a time that they came before the throne. Then using that in the understanding here, it's very easy for folks to see that and believe, that makes sense. The angels came down. That's what's going on, right? Well, that's interesting. It's an interesting topic anyway. So the first thing I'm going to do is submit a couple, one verse in particular to you. If this is of any interest to you at all, is Matthew 22:30, where Jesus himself says, "For in the resurrection they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are as the angels of God in heaven." In other words, Jesus himself stood witness to say, the angels in heaven don't get married. So if the angels in heaven don't get married, how do you marry that statement here, where it says the sons of God saw the daughters of men and took them for wives? Mm-hmm. So immediately you start having evidence that it's really not possible, because we have Jesus as a witness saying they don't get married. So that's the first thing I would throw out there, just as a first dagger in this mystical claim that they make. Also, I guess it's worthy to note that giants were not limited to that time. We're obviously talking about before the flood. We have giants today, right? They're rare, but there are a few around that grow larger than others, right? Then there are some that become kind of famous, like Andre the Giant, the wrestler, right? And but you can go back to David and Goliath. You can go to when Moses sent spies to spy out the land, and came back and said, "Wow, they're big. They're of a huge stature." And so there's evidence that giants are not unique to the angels. They just happen to be something that happens amongst us. Some are born blonde, some are born blue eyes, some are born giant. It just happens to be the way it is. So there's nothing unusual about the statement of them being born, of there being giants in that time. And the giants doesn't necessarily mean giants in the sense that we understand it. It could just be large. The next thing I would state, first of all, by way of Scripture, Jesus stated that the angels don't marry. The next thing I'm going to actually state is, I'm going to state this first, and then we'll lay out the proof, that the sons of God are those men and lineage of men which honored God and taught their children to do the same. That's going to be my statement, for which we're going to discuss, okay? And the daughters of men, for that record, is giving reference to women, and by all accounts even young men, who are not honoring God, who are not living under that advice who are not teaching that advice to their children. You had, if you want to envision it that way, there was a lineage of people from Adam who taught their children to honor God, and they had many children, but only a few did. As they had many children, there obviously were many that did not. And they were sons of God, sons of fathers who also honored God, but they didn't carry on in the same way. They went out and found them other wives that maybe worshipped idols or didn't worship anything at all, and they intermingled with the world. And the stories before the flood are pretty dire. The evil, the murder, the wickedness of their thoughts, anything they conceived, they did. The fact of the matter is, I'll give you this. The Bible says that even the beasts in the garden, the herbs were given to them for meat. I don't find any indication where even the beast ate meat originally. But isn't it interesting that God said, I'm going to destroy both man and beast? Now, isn't that interesting? He repented that he made them. You see, even the beasts had found themselves, like man, doing things they probably shouldn't have done. Just my opinion. They probably hadn't learned to kill one another until they saw man kill one another. They hadn't learned to devour one another until they had tasted that blood. And it repented God that he had made them. Just a side topic there, okay? I want you to see, if you can, and build a visual picture in your mind. Remember, once before we talked about hurricanes and the droplets in the air. If you can just build a little bit of picture in your mind and follow me for a moment, I'm going to lead you through something. Adam, we don't know a lot about him other than he was the first, obviously. We know what he fell into in sin in the garden, and the curse that was put on all man because of the sin. But we do have one statement that I want to grab a hold to, so we can tie it in with everything else. Verse 25 had said, you don't turn there because I'm going to go through a lot of verses. Verse 25 said, God made the beasts of the earth after his kind. And then by verse 26 it said, and God said, let us make man in our image after our likeness. And in verse 31 he said, and God saw everything that he made, and behold, it was very good. God saw Adam, and it was good. That phrase, I want you to get that. God saw Adam, and it was good. This obviously was on the sixth day. Now, in chapter 5, verse 4, it speaks of Adam having Seth, but then also having other sons and daughters. It doesn't give all the details, but there are other sons and daughters. So I want you to hang on that as well. Now, you know that Cain killed Abel, right? We've all heard that story. And then a little while later, they had another child, Seth. Genesis 5, verse 3, and Adam lived 130 years and begot a son, in his own likeness, after his image, and called his name Seth. Now Adam was made in God's likeness, and it says here that Seth was made in Adam's likeness. So that's just a little nugget that I found there. Don't find any other real information about Seth other than what happens with his son, which is pretty cool. Now it says that after begotten Seth, Adam had other sons and daughters. So like I said, there were other children. Seth begets Enos in Genesis 4:26, and to Seth, to him also there was born a son, and he called his name Enos. Then began men to call upon the name of the Lord. Now this is how many generations from Adam? It's right there. Adam, Seth, Enos. And from here, Enos, men began to call upon the name of the Lord. I don't know if it was at the birth of Enos or the generation of Enos, it doesn't matter. And also right here, this liberal agenda we see here in the world today, it's been going on for a long time. I'll just go ahead and tell you that. If you go back and you like researching Latin and Greek and Hebrew text and getting away from today's writings and opinions on stuff, but getting back to some really core original stuff, and if you could ever learn it and read it, you're going to find that there's a lot of writings that right here, this early in the Bible, have twisted it. They insist that at this point, where it says that men began to call upon the name of the Lord, that they were calling upon God in profanity. Seriously. A lot of early writings outside of Hebrew, the traditional Hebrew, the rabbinic texts actually refer to them as calling out and calling upon God in form of honoring Him. But there are many other books that in that earlier day were already saying that they were calling out profaning God, twisting the meaning. Okay? So the idea of twisting the meaning of these angels, it wasn't new. It had already been going on. But I want you to see that right there from Adam, he was made in God's image, and behold, it was very good. Seth was made in Adam's image, and then Enos was born, and they began to call upon the name of the Lord. Then began man to call upon the name of the Lord. So pay attention to that. Enos had begot sons and daughters. How many? We don't know. Seth begot sons and daughters. How many? We don't know. So obviously we know of Adam, Seth, and Enos. Each of those fathers and their wives had children beyond them. We don't have a lot of detail on. But what we have is children of fathers who were honoring God, who are now there, and they're going out and intermingling. And this was some of what's going on in those early days of Genesis. As you know, Cain killed Abel. Well, Cain went out and had kids too. Okay? And their genealogy followed after him because they're taught what to do by daddy, right? And their children are always going to do the worst things of you. You be the best you can be because they're going to be a little bit worse. Okay? So, just my opinion. Enos begot Canaan. In Genesis 5:9, Enos lived 90 years and got Canaan. We don't have a lot that jumps out about him, but then he also had sons and daughters beyond that. Canaan begot Mahalalel. Sometimes there's words I can't pronounce. And if it helps to wake you up, I'll say it like that. Mahalalala. Too many in there? All right, so anyway, we don't have a whole lot about him as well, but then we have Jared. Now Jared needs to be appreciated, although there's not much said in here. In chapter 5, verse 15, Mahalalel lives 65 years and begot Jared. We don't have much about Jared, but pay attention in verse 18. And Jared lived 162 years and begot Enoch. Jared was the father of Enoch. Now, do you know who Enoch is yet? Enoch is a gentleman that walked with God so much that he was taken up. How did Enoch learn to walk with God so closely, to make God so happy that God would want to be with him so much that he'd actually bring him up there? His father's name was Jared. He must have learned it from somebody. Okay? And where would Jared would have learned it from? Mahalo, and so on. So you've got individuals here, genealogy is being described of people that appreciated God, that honored God, that taught their children to honor God. Otherwise, Enoch would not have learned this. So Jared had Enoch in verse 18 there. And all the days of Enoch, in verse 23 of chapter 5, all the days of Enoch were 365 years. And Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. In chapter 5:12, I'll just tell you that Enoch, after he begot, Jared, after he begot Enoch, had more sons and daughters. So each of these families had other sons and daughters. That's the point I want you to see. Every single one of them. But specifically, we see a line through here to Enoch that honored God, chose to honor God. In Hebrews 11, don't turn there, I'll read this. It says, by faith Enoch was translated that he should not see death and was not found, because God had translated him, for before his translation he had his testimony that he pleased God. Now what is it to have a testimony that it pleased God? In an era of Genesis, prior to the flood, when evil was abounding, there was Adam, there was Seth, and there was a beginning of telling your children, listen, there's a God. Let me tell you what happened in the garden. You need to learn about God. You need to honor Him. And there's also a curse. And you need to know about this curse. Okay? But that curse was done for a reason, because I messed up. Okay? But you need to know about this curse. And it doesn't matter about that curse. You still need to honor God. And it was taught. And it was taught so much that Enoch had a testimony. So much so that he pleased God. So much so God wanted to be with him in ways that we couldn't imagine, to literally bring him up to heaven. That's pretty strong. Can you imagine the daddy of Enoch? What kind of man that would have been in his walk to have been able to raise his son that way? Enoch had a son, Methuselah, and others. Genesis 5:21, Enoch lived 65 years and begot Methuselah. And in verse 22 says, and begot other sons and daughters. So even Enoch had other sons and daughters. But you know what? While Enoch was around here walking on this earth, he must have taught something to somebody, i.e. Methuselah. Okay? Methuselah begot Lamech in verse 26 of chapter 5. He begot Lamech, and he had more sons and daughters. And Lamech, in verse 29, begot Noah. And he called his name Noah, saying, This same shall comfort us concerning our work and toil of our hands, because of the ground which the Lord hath cursed. Now, how do you suppose Lamech come to know anything about a trouble? We're needing comfort for the work and toil of our hands because of the ground which the Lord had cursed. How do you suppose Lamech heard about that? It had to have been told to him, right? And he's 2 generations from Enoch, so he probably heard some good stuff at the time, right? I don't know why, but I have to wonder why Lamech even expected this new baby was going to somehow comfort them. It's almost like somehow he had some knowledge or a vision or prophecy or something that he was going to have a child that was going to deliver them. I'll use that word. But comfort them. He knew something, and that was actually there in the naming. And he called his name Noah, saying, This same shall comfort us concerning our work and toil of our hands, because of the ground which the Lord hath cursed. So Lamech both knew of the curse, but he had faith that God was fixing to do something in this little boy that he named Noah. There had to have been some communication, maybe prayer, vision, prophecy, or whatever, between God and some of these men that were teaching one another in how to live and how to honor God. A little supposition there because the detail's not there, okay? But do you see the chain of fatherhood? Do you see the chain of it being passed down to even Noah, that of what he would be? He would be something to bring some comfort. But at the same time, in each generation, there are other sons and daughters that aren't mentioned. They're sons of Lamech, or sons of Seth, or sons of Enoch. But they're not mentioned for doing anything great. They're just not mentioned. Because no doubt they've gone out and intermingled. Is this too deep? I'm going to pull you into something here in a minute, okay? So in Genesis chapter 5, verse 30, he begot sons and daughters. How many we don't know, beyond Noah. But I want to read chapter 6, verse 1. And continue a little bit, okay? Because this is where we really pick up. You know, obviously, Noah had 3 sons. That's who's going to go in the boat and everything. But I want to key in on this, okay? And it came to pass, when man began to multiply on the face of the earth, and the daughters were born unto them. Remember, each of these men, there were other men and daughters that were born unto them, not just the ones that were named. The daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men. So I'm proposing, and just follow me, the sons of Enoch and Seth and Lamech and so on, saw the daughters of men, the daughters of Cain, And they saw that they were fair, and they took them to wives, all that they chose. They didn't pray about it. They didn't talk to Daddy. They just took what they chose. And the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. And then it goes on to describe, obviously there were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that the sons of God came into the daughters of men. They bare children to them. The same became mighty men, which were of old men of renown. And I was talking to the youth and telling them, if you've got some bad guys, they tend to look big. If you've got some bad apples, they're out there drinking at the bar or whatever, they get the beer muscle going on, they look pretty big. Those rabble-rousers or whatever, those guys that like to rough you up, they look pretty big. And you scrawny little Christians sitting here, you're not rabble-rousers, you're not out sitting at the bar, you don't look very big. So in your eyes, they look like giants. It's not far-fetched to believe that just simply because they were a bunch of wicked men, they looked big in their eyes. And they were men of renown because, you know what, they made a name for themselves for a lot of stupid stuff they were doing. And God saw the wickedness of man, that it was great on the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of their heart was only evil continually. And it repented the Lord that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him in his heart. And the Lord said, I will destroy man, whom I've created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, and the creeping thing, and the fowl of the air, for it repenteth me that I have made them. Repented him that he made both of them, the beast and the man. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. And of course, instantly the youth jump up and say, oh, that's a song. Yes, it is. A very good song. Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. And the next part, few people have ever read. These are the generations of Noah. Noah was a just man, perfect in his generations, and Noah walked with God. We've heard that type of language about Job, right? Perfect and right, upright or whatever. How many people read that verse? Right? Noah was a just man and perfect in his generations, and Noah walked with God. How do you suppose Noah walked with God? Except his father, Lamech, taught him. How did Lamech walk with God? Except his father, who was none other than Methuselah, and then above that Enoch, who was taken up. So you've got a genealogical progression of men that honored God and taught their sons to do the same. No doubt taught all their sons, but some chose to do the same. We think that what's the verse that says many that are chosen but few?
Many are called.
Many are called, but few are chosen. Many are called, but few are chosen. Fathers have many sons and daughters, but only a few listened and passed it on. Thank you. Verse 11 says, the earth was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. And God looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. The extraction out of all this is that Noah found grace, and that Noah was a just man, perfect in his generations. That's interesting. It did say perfect in his generations, didn't it? Perfect in his generations. What are generations? Your genealogy, your fathers? Just could be an interpretation there. Perfect in his generations, and Noah walked with God. That's a testimony. If that's happened, there's probably not even a tenth of the testimony that Enoch had in walking with God, so much that God wanted to be with him and took him up. But Noah had a testimony as well. He was perfect in his generations and walked with God. After the flood, I want to point a couple people out. Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, and Daniel. They would not worship the golden images, would they? What happened to them? Cast into the fire. What happened in the fire? Short answer, they walked with God. All right? There was a fourth man in the fire. And so how was it that they got cast in the fire? Well, they refused to worship the idol. They had a testimony that they wouldn't do it. And when they were put under the gun, they didn't do it. And they got cast into the fire. But lo and behold, God was with them. A fourth man, like in the image of the Son of God, was with them. And they came out, nothing was singed, not a hair, not even the clothes. It said that they were put in their clothes and then bound. And how is it that they were walking around in there when they were bound in their clothes? That'd be pretty tough. That's like getting out of a suit jacket with ropes on top of it. And but they're out there walking around the fire, and when they come out, not even the cloth of their clothes smell like fire. They walked with God, and they had a testimony, and they gained a testimony coming out of that turned the heart of the king. Right? And he said, we're going to worship their God. Job, there was a man in the land of Uz. Is it Uz or Uz? Uz. Whose name was Job, and that man was perfect and upright. Sounds familiar? And one that feared God and eschewed evil. Again, somebody who's walking with God close enough you would imagine God might want to take him up. So Enoch must have been doing something even more than that, walking even closer. Elijah, in 2 Kings, it came to pass, as they still went on and talked, that behold, there appeared a chariot of fire and horses of fire, and parted them both asunder, and Elijah went up in a whirlwind into heaven. And we don't have a lot of indication. Of course, if you read the story, you can get a bigger picture of Elijah's life and who he was in his testimony. But I would pull this one out to give you a short one, okay? When John the Baptist was to be born, an angel visited Zacharias, telling him his wife Elizabeth was going to have a child. In Luke 1:17, and he should go before him in the spirit and power of Elijah, to turn the hearts of the fathers to the children and the disobedient to the wisdom of the just, to make ready a people prepared for the Lord. He's comparing what John the Baptist is going to be to Elijah. So what can we take from that? Elijah must have been someone that was in the spirit and power. In spirit and power, turned the hearts of people from disobedience and prepared them for the Lord. Just a little synopsis. If you study Elijah in totality, there's a whole lot there. But I'm going this particular path for a reason. Moses met with God on the mountain. You know that story, right? He was covered so God could pass by and just let him see the hinder parts. And of course, it changed his countenance, just seeing the hinder parts. Surely he walked with God, or would be considered a son of God, I don't think. In the New Testament, I want to pull you here for a little bit. John 1:12. You don't need to turn there. I'll give you some here in a minute you can go to. In fact, you can begin turning to Luke chapter 3 and sit there for just a second. John chapter 1, verse 12. But as many as received him, to them gave he power to become the sons of God, even to them that believe on his name. Romans 8:14. For as many are led by the Spirit of God, they are the sons of God. Well, there's a perfect definition right there. For as many as are led by the Spirit of God, they are the sons of God. Romans 8:19. For the earnest expectations of the creature waiteth for the manifestation of the sons of God. Philippians 2:15. That ye may be blameless and harmless, the sons of God, without rebuke, in the midst of a crooked and perverse nation, among whom ye shine as lights in the world. That should be our banner today. You know that? We should actually put that on the front of every church's website as our desire for Christians and our congregation. Philippians 2:15, that ye may be blameless and harmless, the sons of God, without rebuke, in the midst of a crooked and perverse nation, among whom ye shine as lights in the world. That's good. 1 John 3:1, behold, what manner of love the Father has bestowed upon us, that we should be called the sons of God. Therefore the world knoweth us not, because it knew him not. 1 John 3:2, beloved, now are we the sons of God, and it doth not yet appear what we shall be. But we know that when he shall appear, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. You see, the topic of the sons of God was not limited to just that section in Genesis. And it actually applies to us very much. And that's where I'm hoping to get you. But I want to really just crank it down tight. This section right here in Genesis back to Adam. And we're going to get there simply by a read-through of Luke 3:23. And Jesus himself began to be about 30 years of age, being as he was supposed the son of Joseph, which was the son of Heli. And I got to tell you, I'm going to mispronounce a whole bunch of names. So if you don't mind, I'll keep you smiling, okay? Which was the son of Mathat, which was the son of Levi, which was the son of Melchi, which was the son of Janna, which was the son of Joseph, which was the son of Mattathias, which was the son of Amos, which was the son of Nahum, which was the son of Esli, which was the son of Nagi, which was the son of Math. Oh, they got math in the Bible. Which was the son of Matthias, which was the son of Semi, which is the son of Joseph, which is the son of Judah, which is the son of Jonah, which is the son of Ressa, which is the son of Zorobabel. If you've lost me, I'm already in verse 27. Which is the son of Salathiel, which is the son of Neri. 28, which is the son of Melchi, which is the son of Adi, which is the son of Kosam, which is the son of Elmadam, which is the son of Er. Well, I wouldn't want that name to be called Er. You err at everything you do. Verse 29, which is the son of, is that Jose or Jose? Which is the son of, I'm sorry, sometimes it's easier to do that than be embarrassed by mispronouncing it. Which is the son of Jose, which is the son of Eliezer, which is the son of Joram, which was the son of Mathat again, which was the son of Levi. If I printed that right, I didn't miss something there. Which is the son of Simeon, which is the son of Judah, which is the son of Joseph, which is the son of Jonah, which is the son of Eliakim. Verse 31, which is the son of Miliah, which is the son of Menon, which is the son of Mattah, which is the son of Nathan, which is the son of David, which is the son of Jesse, which is the son of Obed, which is the son of Booz. Is it supposed to be Boaz? No, it wasn't Booz. Had to be Boaz. Which was the son of Salmon. I love salmon. Which is the son of Nason, which is the son of Aminadab, which is the son of Aram, which is the son of Ezron, which is the son of Phares, which is the son of Judah, which is the son of Jacob, which is the son of Isaac, which is the son of Abraham. These ones I know. Which is the sons of Thera, which are the sons of Nachor, which are the sons of Saruch, which are the sons of Ragu, which are the sons of Phalek, which are the sons of Heber, which are the sons of Salah. Now that's a good name, I like that. Which are the sons of Canaan, which are the sons of Arphaxad, which are the sons of Sem, which are the sons of Noah, which are the sons of Lamech. Now remember, Noah was perfect in his generations and walked with God. Which is the son of Lamech, which is the son of Methuselah, which is the son of Enoch. Enoch was so right with God that God called him up to be with him. Which is the son of Jared, who taught Enoch how to live. Which is the son of Mahalaleel, which is the son of Canaan, which is the son of Enos, which is and Enos was the one from that point they began to honor God. Which is the son of Seth, which is the son of Adam. Which is what? Did you get that? So Adam is the son of God. So in the beginning when we're talking about Adam, it really doesn't give us that level of distinction of him, but we start getting that out of everybody else because of their life and their action. But here when we read through the genealogy of Jesus, we see here in the end, which was the son of Adam, which was the son of God. So can it be any question at all when we say that the sons of God, we're referring to Adam, Seth, and right on down through Enoch to Noah. We're referring to those men that honored God, that knew Him, that knew that about the curse, about sin, what it was about, that they still, that even though they did wrong, there was a God that was holy and just, and they need to honor Him. Now they had lots of daughters and sons, each one of them, right? But only few heard, listened, and passed it on to their kids. And it did get passed on because we've got the evidence straight through to Enoch and to Noah and how they walked and how they lived. And I'll tell you what, I was writing over here, I knew I forgot to write something down, it just hit me, I'm glad I did. Where did this come from? Okay. Where did the first 5 books of the Bible come from? Moses wrote. Why did Moses write them? You think it was because he walked with God, he honored God, he was a son of God in his life, and he knew that he needed to impart that teaching to others? Do you think that the purpose of this is because there's a whole series of people who've walked with God, maybe not as tight as Enoch or as tight as Noah, that the entire planet can be wiped out and one man and his family spared. Maybe not walk that tight, but walk so tight that they knew, and they knew it was right to pass on to their generations. Till you have the scribes keeping the scrolls, till we have the Torah built, till we have the Jewish communities raised, till we have straight through to Christ himself coming, that we the Gentiles would have an opportunity to hear about this story about being a son of God, walking with God, honoring God. That was passed to us through them. You understand? This was passed to us through them. That was an added thought I had here a little while ago, and that's good. As precious as what it is. In a different setting, this could go in a lot of different ways. So I'll read through a couple things here and then finish up with a little bit different visual. We can only be talking about the sons of God as far in relationship to the family of God. Those people that have that relationship, brothers and sisters in God. And typically, this would be a good transition into reminding people that all of sin comes short of the glory of God. The wages of sin is death. The gift of God. Confession. For this crowd here tonight, I would build a different visual. Many of you have done farming, so you're familiar with grafting. And you're familiar, if not from there, from biblical stories of grafting. So, John 1:12 says, "But as many as received him, to them gave he powers to become the sons of God, even to them that believe on his name." You know Jesus came. You know he started with the Jews, but also to the Gentiles. Wasn't willing that any should perish. That's outside of that genealogical progression from Adam, outside the Jewish community. Wasn't willing that any should perish. Right? Salvation is for everybody. But here's the thing. Jesus himself, in essence, is that end point on the genealogical transition of the fathers. There's other Jewish families that have gone on. But from there, we have this end point. This point on the vine, if you will. And I'd submit to you that, and I want you to get this vision, and I hope you'll appreciate this. Not appreciate it and like it, but in solemnness, okay? Do you know what it takes to graft something? If you've got a tree and you want to graft something onto it, what do you have to do? You got to cut into it, right? You got to peel it off of it, the flesh. You wound it. Wasn't Christ wounded for our transgressions? Every stripe and cut on his back, visualize this, was making a place for grafting. Here's the other thing. You know, if you're going to graft something, besides preparing where it's going, you got to choose which one. What it is you want to graft into it, right? We don't choose. He calls us. He chooses us. And then the thing is, you can't just take a stick. You got to whittle it down a little bit. And it's going to take some pain. You know, when you admit who you are in the depth of your heart, when you admit your sin, it hurts. When you truly do. Now those that just fragrantly say, hey, I want to get saved, that's another story. But when you truly admit in your heart who you are, and you truly, from your mouth, admit your sins, there's a humble position that you find yourself in that hurts. It's a peeling back of the flesh. It's pulling back the curtain saying, this is who I really am. And it ain't pretty. And when a grafter takes that branch, he's got to prepare it. That's exactly what's going on. First, he selects it. And second, he's got to peel it down a little bit. It hurts. But you know what happens when they graft? They take that thing, they put it on there, and oftentimes they wrap it with a little cloth or something, tie it up nice. It's kind of what the Holy Spirit comes when he's a comforter, isn't it? And we get grafted into that family. And you know what's really beautiful is Jesus says that you're in my hand, I'm in the Father's. How are you going to get taken out? I just imagine two more hands wrapped around that thing. How are you going to get taken out? But how precious is it to understand that it's literally by Jesus that we're grafted in. Almost visually by His stripes. You almost could say that. I'm not so far down the road as some would, that when they take communion, this flesh literally turns to flesh in your mouth or anything. That's almost, when I'm talking about this grafting, you could almost get that far. I don't want to get that far. But it is that precious what Jesus did. And He literally formed that grafting for us. Exactly like that. And it hurt Him. And His flesh was peeled back and He was wounded that we could be grafted in. That's how precious it was. And I think about how solemn and precious His thoughts had to have been in the midst of that. In nakedness, in beating and scarring, public shame. I can't even put into words the precious love He had to have for us at that moment. But I got a near example. And this near example will still be 1,000 miles away, but I'll give it to you. When a mama has a baby, they say that you go through the jaws of death. Okay? I've witnessed it several times. It's tough. And there's a lot of pain. And a woman's body is put to the end. But when that little infant is put in your arms, that little infant has no idea how much you love that infant. But there is, you can't put into words, the solemn love that you have for that infant after going through everything you did for him. There's a solemn, deep, that can't be put into words. They'll never know how much. That's how it is with Jesus. 1,000 times more. There was that level of solemnness that He had for us. Love that we can't even begin to grasp. We can't, but He had it for us. Some people will be in a few different conditions. And one of them might be lost, not a son of God at all, not a part of the family. Jesus died on the cross, was wounded, stricken, His flesh peeled back, died for our sins, died for your transgressions, literally prepared for you to be grafted. Comes down to being saved, admitting yourself a sinner, confessing your sins verbally, openly to God, putting your faith in Christ. Another will be in the condition of in the family, like these other sons and daughters. Top right. Sons and daughters of Enoch. Can you imagine that? He had other sons and daughters. Sons and daughters of Enoch. They and their grandchildren died in the flood. Why? They weren't seen worthy, not prepared to know Him. You might be in the family. You might have been saved, but physically grafted Son of God, but intermingling in your life with the world, married to the world, Facebook, Twitter, those carnal jokes. It could be things that you do behind closed doors. It could be places you go. It could be anything. There are those that are saved. Some might jokingly say backslid, but let me just say their lives, they're not walking with God. They're children of Enoch or Lamech or Seth, but they didn't hear enough to be walking with God as they should, and they're not going to pass it down. And then the third condition I think people would be in are those who are actively, as close as they can, walking with God. For those, I'd say consider and remember the start back of Jesus, whom you've been grafted in through. Remember that death and his love. Have honor. Have honor for Jesus. Have honor for God. Remember that his death on the cross provides you the honor of being grafted in the family, not a right. Now, that's an interesting thought. You've got the honor of being part of the family. It's not a right. It's an honor. And if you put it in a perspective like that, and understand it was by his death that we're grafted in, and you understand it's an honor, then you seek to honor him. Live as if it's an honor. Share it as if it's an honor. Teach others to honor God. Seek, pray in a prayer life to walk as close to him as possible. It's been thousands of years since somebody has walked so close with God and honored God so much that he's taken them up to heaven. But it could happen again, I suppose. We just don't walk so close with God anymore. We don't see that love, and we don't pass that down. We don't see the importance of living for God. We don't see the importance of avoiding sin in every area of our life, so that we have that testimony that others have had in the past. But that's what we've got to find. This was a kind of deep and broad, and it ran from both ends of the Bible. But I hope you saw that the sons of God in that verse that saw the daughters of men weren't angels. Because angels don't marry, first of all. And there was actually a pattern that was running through the genealogy there. The sons of God were those that were honoring God and teaching their children to do the same. That's my opinion. Now we get into the New Testament, we find out the sons of God are those that believe, that follow him, that are saved, because we're part of the family. Right? And when we really understand that we're part of that family through the pain and anguish of Christ, through that grafting, there's a little bit different solidness to our understanding. And I hope you found that tonight, and find that honor, and find a way to walk a little bit closer to God, okay? All right. Any questions? Comments? Things I mispronounced, missaid? Blasphemy? Anything? I'm sure I've stated something wrong. Positive.
You mentioned that we're all, that we're not all just, we're not born into this world, and we're not all just automatically sons of God. It's through our relationship with Christ. And I thought it was interesting that on Sunday I had went and my nephew was getting baptized, and it was in a non-denominational church. So always makes me nervous going to something like that to begin with. And but one thing he said in it was, he made the comment during it that everybody is a child of God, and it's just like that's how the world is viewing it, and how skewed they've taken that.
Sure.
And a little bit different than where you're going, but just remind me of that people will just take that and run with it. And they'll skew that line of thinking just as they skewed it with the angels and everything else.
Yeah, we're not sons of God unless we've been grafted in salvation through Christ. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't a light thing. That grafting in was a painful thing. And it's painful for us when we reach that point of salvation. Other comments? Prayer requests?